Hello all and welcome. I'm super excited to be here today to talk to you all a little bit about Windows Update Management. Specifically, how does Windows Update for Business actually work behind the scenes? What's the difference between Windows Update for Business and Windows Server Update Service, or WSUS? Also, if you're managing on-premises today with WSUS, what's the best ways you can leverage the cloud without a huge lift and shift to make a difference in your management today and get all of those benefits? Ready? Let's dig in. First, we're going to start at the high-level basics. There are three primary ways to manage Windows updates: with Media, Windows Server Update Service, or Windows Update for Business. Let's start by looking a little bit into how WSUS works. Well, first, you have your WSUS server. And you've got a management tool. Let's say in this case, Microsoft Endpoint Manager, Configuration Manager, or WSUS Standalone Console, or any third-party tool. Now, this WSUS server connects to Microsoft's endpoint and gets the updates that it actually wants to sync from there. Now, the management tool does a few different things. One, it looks at all of the devices in its organization, whether those are client devices, or perhaps they are going to be server devices, or even IoT devices. And it says basically, okay, I'm going to assign policy to each of these devices. And obviously, you can assign the policies based on device group or directly on each device. And this policy includes the policy to scan against the Windows Server Update Service, or one of the Windows Server Update Services in its organization. Additionally, the management tool is going to tell the WSUS server which updates are approved for each of those devices. Now, when the clients actually scan the Windows Server Update Service, the server is going to say, okay, which content is actually applicable to you? Okay, your admin said that this content is approved for you, and you don't have it yet, so I'm going to offer it to the device. Pretty simple, right? The admin approves the content is downloaded from Microsoft's endpoint to the WSUS server, and then pushed out directly to the client. Now, what's the difference between that and how Windows Update for Business works? Well, let's take all of those same clients and have them scan instead directly against Microsoft's endpoint in the cloud, aka Windows Update, aka WU. Now, in this case, rather than scanning against a WSUS server that's owned by the organization, these devices are going to connect directly to the Microsoft endpoint themselves. Now, you still have a management tool. Let's say it could still be MEM, Intune, or maybe it's a third party, or Group Policy Management Console. And this management tool is doing a very similar thing. It's going and it's telling the devices, hey, here's some policy for you. In one example, let's say that this policy is to configure what's actually going to be offered from the cloud. Additionally, if you're using Windows Update for Business deployment service, we actually have the new capability to talk directly to the server itself. All of this input is being read in by the cloud, and it's determining, okay, based on all of those inputs, I'm going to offer this update to you. Now, that might look different than the approval process, but you're still having full control over which updates are offered when, and what the client does with them. Let's look into an example of what I mean. Hey, Kay, can you go do a demo for me of setting up the Intune management console with our recommended policies?
For sure. So this is our Intune management tool. To set our recommended policies, you'll be leveraging two different pages. First, let's use the feature update deployments page to specify which feature update version we want Aria's device to move to. We are going to configure this deployment to point to Windows 11. Note, Windows 11 has a different license agreement than Windows 10. So by using a management tool, whether WUfB or WSUS, to target Windows 11 to a Windows 10 device, you are agreeing to the terms and conditions on behalf of your end users. In this case, I'm agreeing on behalf of Aria as it is her device that I am targeting. Next, we are going to go to the Update Rings page to configure offering policies for quality updates in the Update Experience policies. Now, the only policies that I'm going to set here are quality update deferrals, in this case, to 7 days. And compliance deadline to 7 days for feature updates, 5 days for quality updates, and 2 days for grace period, for example. You can make this more or less aggressive depending on your compliance needs. Nope, I'm not going to set any other policies. In fact, I'm going to ensure that they are not configured or restored to the default state. Often with Windows Update policies, less is more in terms of keeping devices protected and productive. Awesome. Now that the policies are set, I'm going to assign them to Aria's device. Okay, all set. Back to you, Aria.
Awesome. Thanks, Kay. So as you saw, Kay set on my device, which this is my beautiful graphical representation of such, 2 policies that are actually on the client. Using the management Intune console, which is highly recommended if you're able to because we love Microsoft Endpoint Manager, she set on the client the quality update deferral policy to 7 days, and she set compliance deadline, which is really recommended as probably the only experience policy that you really need if you're using Windows Update for Business. And so she set it for feature updates to 7 days, quality updates to 5 days, and our grace period to 2 days. Now, for better compliance, of course, you can decrease those numbers, really adjust them so they work best for your organization. And we'll get into the impact of that a little bit later. Now, she also set with our new Windows Update for Business deployment service a feature update policy that told the cloud, hey, I want you to actually go with this device to Windows 11. AKA, she specified a target feature update version. Now, what's actually happening is Intune is going to send both the device ID and the fact that I want to target Windows 11 to that device ID to the cloud directly, rather than having that set on the client whatsoever. So now my client's going to scan. So when my client scans, it sends up a bunch of different information. It's sending up all of the offering information, such as my quality update deferral of 7 days. It's also going to send up its OS version. In this case, my device is running 20.004. And it's going to set up the revision, which in this case is just the latest quality update that it took, which for me was the August security update. Now, I know I'm a little behind on patching, and we're going to hopefully remedy that in this situation. The other thing that's going to be sent up is actually an app compatibility safeguard message for basically how compatible this device is with the future versions of Windows. So it's going to send up an app compatibility upgrade experience marker as well. Now, all of these and a few other details are going to be sent up to the cloud, aka Windows Update, along with the device ID and which version I'm actually targeting. Now, the server is going to use all of this to make the decision about what to offer. Let's take a look. So step 1, the server is going to say, okay, what are all the updates available? And it's going to list out, okay, we have the feature updates, which in this case are going to be Windows 11, which is the latest. There's going to be Win 10 21H1. There's going to be Win 10 20H2. And then all of the other feature updates are going to be below Windows 10 version 20.04. So they're going to be irrelevant. It's then going to list out all of the quality updates. Now, the quality updates available are going to be, in this case, the November security update, which was released a few days ago. There's going to be the October optional update. There's going to be the October security update, the September optional update, and there's going to be the September security update. So all of these updates are going to be available to the device based on the fact that they're all newer than what the device currently has. Now, step 2, it's going to say, okay, is this a WUfB device? Is this using WUfB? Yes, it is. So then it's going to do 2 things. First, it's going to apply deferrals. The only deferrals this device has are actually the quality update deferrals, which say that it needs to be at least 7 days. So if we want at least 7 days, we're going to look at these updates. Well, there's no feature update deferrals, so they all meet 7 days. What about the quality updates? Well, all of the quality updates have been released for at least 7 days, except for the November security update. It's only 5 days old at this point. Guess we'll have to wait on that one. But all of the others are at least 7 days old. Great, we've applied deferrals. Next, it's going to say, okay, it's WUfB. Only security quality updates or critically marked quality updates apply. Well, I guess that means we don't actually need any of these optional updates. Nope, nope, nope. None of them are going to be applicable to the device anyway. And finally, it's going to say target version. So did they target a specific version of the OS to move to? In this case, yep. We targeted Windows 11. That means that the only future update that's going to be applicable to this device is going to be Windows 11. So we don't need either of those updates anymore either. They're not applicable. Great, so now we've limited this list down to only a few updates that are actually applicable to the device. Next, we're going to say, are there any safeguards in place? Well, in this case, it turns out there are. There was an app compatibility marker that said Windows 11 is not compatible. Now, what does compatible really mean? I want to throw it over to Nir, who's going to talk a little bit about how you can see which safeguards are protecting your device using update compliance and get a better understanding for why it's not updating and what it's being protected from.
Before we look into whether Aria's device is protected by a safeguard hold, let's double-check that her device meets the Windows 11 system requirements. Since the device is sending full telemetry, we can check this update compliance report on Windows 11 readiness. In this case, we're interested in seeing if Aria's device is capable of upgrading to Windows 11. So we select Capable in the status dropdown and go down to this table of devices to see if Aria's device is listed. Here it is. This means that Aria's device does meet the system requirements for Windows 11, but it can still have a safeguard hold in place for compatibility issues. So now let's go to the Update Compliance Report on safeguard holds to get more information on why Aria's device is not compatible with the upgrade right now. Since we're interested in a specific device, we can look at the device view of safeguard holds and search for the device. Here it is. So her device is being protected by a safeguard hold with this ID. For some safeguard hold IDs, there will be additional information published on the Known Issues and Notifications page for the targeted release. If we search for the safeguard hold ID on this page, we'll find more details about this specific issue. Once the issue is resolved, Aria's device will automatically upgrade to Windows 11. Back to you, Aria.
Awesome. Thanks, Nir. I'm super excited about all of the transparency that Microsoft is bringing to basically the update process, especially around known issues. It's super nice to know that one of the benefits of the cloud, especially from my opinion, is the fact that we have all of these known issues we're protecting devices from. Now, all of those really, really bad issues are going to be in setup blocks, meaning they apply to Windows Server Update Service as well as Windows Update for Business or even Media. But a lot more of those issues that may not be as critical are in safeguards only, and the only way to be protected from them is through Windows Update for Business. So in this case, the device is being protected from upgrading to Windows 11 by the safeguard, meaning it's no longer applicable, but it will be later on once we actually provide a fix for that issue. Now that we've actually rolled out all of the different updates that aren't applicable to the device, either because of policy or because of built-in protections you get from using the cloud, the server is going to look at, okay, what is the highest ranked update left? And it's going to offer that to the device. Now, in the server's point of view, feature updates are always going to be higher than quality updates. And the more recently the update was released, the higher that update's going to be. Now, in this case, that means there's no feature updates available, and the highest quality update that's applicable to the device is the October security update. So we're going to have the October security update offered from the server to the device. Pretty cool, right? Now, what is the device going to do once it gets that update? Well, as we talked about earlier, the device has compliance deadlines set. This means that the device is going to then say, hey, okay, I got it. Now, I have an update stack that's built in on the device to do things like download, install, and restart. It also works directly with the UX to say what the UX should be displaying. Now in this case, download is going to happen first. And on any Windows 11 device, we have intelligent active hours to actually basically say when the user is using that device and what they're using it for. Will downloading disrupt their productivity? What about installing or restarting? The device will automatically download and restart in the background, hopefully without disrupting the end user. Now, once this is downloaded and installed, it's going to then be pending restart. Note, because we have the compliance deadline set to 5 days for quality updates, if the device doesn't download and install within 5 days, it'll be forced to download and install as quickly as possible to get to that point, which for this device, which clearly hasn't been patched since August, means I was probably on vacation, and this is the first time it's booting up in a while, which means I'm probably already past the download and install page, which means I'm now at pending restart. Now, even though I was on vacation, I'm not going to instantly come back and see a forced reboot, which is the worst. Instead, it's actually going to tell me, nope, it's okay. You have a grace period. It's been more than 7 days or 5 days since you actually were supposed to take this update. And so we're going to download and install as quickly as possible. But we're then going to give you the grace period of 2 days to restart, which is great because that means overnight I can plug in my device, go to sleep, and the device will automatically restart when I'm not there. Even if that fails, the device will give me 2 days of notifications, warnings, and hey, we're going to restart you at this time before I am then finally forced to restart. Now, that's how the client works. But after all of this, how can you get the best of both worlds? How can you leverage Windows Server Update Service and still get some of these protections from the cloud or built-in capabilities? Well, let's dig in a little bit. Let's go back to a world where I have my device. And I want to connect it to both my WSUS server and directly to the cloud. Now, I primarily only have MEM Configuration Manager, and it's what I use to manage my WSUS server. It also is what I use to set some policies in the client. Well, luckily, did you know that if you have MEM Configuration Manager, for free, you get an Intune license, which means I can also use MEM Intune to configure policies on the device. And if I have an E3 or E5 license, I can use MEM Intune to use our new Windows Update for Business Deployment Services to set policies on the cloud as well. This is pretty cool because now what's going to happen is my device can scan both the cloud and WSUS. To control which updates are offered, I'm going to briefly pull up my group policy and show you how I'm going to configure my device to get certain Windows Update types from the cloud while getting others from Windows Server Update Service.
So this is my actual device. It's currently being managed by both Microsoft Endpoint Manager, Configuration Manager, as well as Microsoft Endpoint Manager Intune, meaning I have both group policies and configuration service provider policies set on this device. However, for the sake of simplicity, I'm actually going to pull up my local group policy. As you can see, my device is currently running Windows 11 with the latest ADMX files and our new subfolder structure, which is super exciting because now, rather than having just a giant list of Windows updates, I can actually see that there are only a few folder categories of Windows Update policies that I need to manage, specifically those offered from Windows Update, those offered from Windows Server Update Service, the end user experience for updates offered by either service, as well as legacy policies. Now, even if you're managing with Windows 10 today, I really recommend leveraging this new ADMX template as it really clarifies which policies are recommended, which are WSUS or cloud only, and which policies are legacy. Anyway, I'm now going to go to my Windows Server Update Service policy folder. Step 1, make sure that you actually have a specified Internet Microsoft Update Service location, meaning that you've configured this policy to point to your WSUS server. Now, once you've done that, you want to actually specify the source service for specific classes of Windows updates. Now, this is a new policy. It was added earlier this year in the August optional update. In this policy, you'll notice that you have a few options. You can actually specify which source you want to get your updates from. For feature updates, you can say Windows Update or WSUS. Quality updates, in this case, I'm going to select coming from Windows Update. Driver updates, I'm definitely going to get from Windows Update. And then other updates, I'm going to continue managing on-prem. This ends up giving me all of my quality updates and driver updates from the cloud, while continuing to get everything else on premises. Pretty nifty, right? Now let's switch back to the graphical representation to see how this ends up working out for my device.
So now that I showed how I'd actually configure that policy in group policy, I'm going to show how that actually changes what the client's going to get. Note, you could also eventually do this in co-management or in a variety of other ways. I just showed group policy for consistency and simplicity. So I had my device now configured to get drivers from WU, quality updates from WU, feature updates from WSUS, and everything else from WSUS as well. Third party, Office, whatever, other from WSUS as well. Which means that now, when I actually scan Windows Update from the cloud, I'm going to get back only the driver and quality updates. Nothing else is going to come down from Windows Update. And when I scan WSUS, I'm going to get down any feature updates and third-party updates, and other Microsoft product updates like Office, etc., etc., etc. And that's it. I'm not going to have to worry about getting any of those updates from the cloud or any of the cloud updates from WSUS, which is actually pretty great because one thing we all know is that drivers are an absolute pain to have to manage from on-premises with WSUS. So being able to get them from the cloud without having to give up any of your control or worry about any of your management is pretty great. Not to mention, we're adding some great driver management capabilities to Intune so that you'll be able to specify for the first time which drivers you want in an easy and seamless fashion, and know which are actually applicable to those devices. Now, hopefully you'll be able to implement some of the things we talked about today in your own environment, or at least have a better sense of how Windows Update for Business works on the back end, so that you can feel more confident in the approvals and the management that it gives you. And start seeing the stepping stones of how you can maybe not move fully to the cloud today, but start leveraging different aspects of the cloud, whether that's to get the safeguards, whether that's to get driver management, or whether that's to just slowly make your progress towards MEM Intune or other cloud management tools so you can reduce your need for on-premises infrastructure. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed this talk. And for more Windows Update information, please feel free to follow me at AriaUpdated on Twitter, or check out our tech community blogs for more information. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day, evening, morning, wherever you're at.